Amanda Marcotte is back. She is, of course, the senior politics writer at Salon. And honestly, in these first couple of weeks of Trump world, she's been as busy and writing fabulous stuff as fast as her pencil will allow her. So I'm particularly grateful that she has time to talk today. Hi, Amanda. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me. Sorry about the echo.
You're good now.
Good. Sorry about that.
Hey, before we talk about the collapse of the rule of law and the twilight of American democracy, and I'm only partly joking about that, can I focus on our common humanity and say I'm happy you found your cat?
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, poor guy. He's hiding under the bed. He's still traumatized by the whole thing.
I have a very lovely, somewhat large dog sitting on the floor right next to me as we speak, and we care for our pets, and when they get lost or in trouble, it's a terrifying moment.
Yeah, no, we didn't get a lot of sleep until he came back.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad. Let's turn to the political world that you cover so well, and there's so much to talk about. How about we start with what the purge at FBI and Justice means? It isn't for me, and I just want to get your take. I mean, not only did the Supreme Court say Donald Trump is free to commit any crime when he's in office in their disgraceful decision in Trump v. USA, but I think Trump has now said that he will ensure that his administration holds no one accountable for committing crimes on his behalf. And that's why it's so important to kick out the inspectors general and get control of the FBI and Justice. Am I overstating this?
No, that seems to be about right. And because Trump is such a narcissist, right, he doesn't understand that the FBI, investigating crimes committed by the executive branch is a very tiny amount of the work that they do. Usually it's 0% of the work that they do.
Well, the executive branch isn't usually criminal.
Yeah. With him, obviously, it would be some percentage of the work that they would do, but obviously, most of these FBI agents that are being driven out are not, they're the kind of people that, help keep our communities free of crime, but I don't think Donald Trump cares about that either. In fact, I wrote an article this week about how, fascists and authoritarians need to manufacture crises to keep power. And one way to manufacture a crisis is to just sort of let it happen. And if the crime rate starts to rise because he's pulled back law enforcement and made a bunch of other moves that make crime more likely, I think he thinks that's going to redound to his benefit.
Well, maybe, but this time everybody's going to call it what it is. I mean, last time Joe Biden made a huge mistake by, talking about the economy as Bidenomics when he should have said, I'm doing a lot of great things, but Trump inflation is a problem. You're right. And I don't think we're going to make that mistake twice. Donald Trump owns it. He's responsible. We've had 2 plane crashes in 3 days on his watch while he's been firing people at the FAA. I mean, let's just, maybe that's not the cause, but maybe it is. But I think it's worth saying out loud.
It certainly can't. First of all, it's clear that they're understaffed. That's absolutely the case in the D.C. situation. We don't know why they were understaffed, but, it should at least highlight why it's a bad idea to just be pushing federal employees out the door as fast as you can without considering whether they are the kind of people that keep planes from falling out of the air, which is what they are. Even then, on top of it, I can't imagine that federal employees right now aren't operating under an unbelievable amount of stress, and that's also going to hurt their ability to do their job.
Yeah, they're like everybody else. They're just people, and they're terrified, and they're being told to be terrified. That's part of the brand of Mr. Musk. Be afraid here, now that you're working in this world.
Yeah, in writing about the situation with federal employees, which I've been writing about a lot, I discovered a forum on Reddit where people that work for the federal government are posting anonymously about their experiences, and it's pretty interesting. I think the folks that are on that forum have, like, because they found community with each other, they are, they're like coaching each other to stay put and force the issue, make them purge you, right?
Yep.
But what they're also saying is that their colleagues in their offices are under unbelievable amounts of stress. Some people said that their colleagues were having panic attacks and nervous breakdowns. I mean, they're just people. A lot of them worked for years to get credentials enough to get these jobs. And then when they got the job, it's supposed to be a secure job. So they built families and got mortgages and built their whole life with the assumption that all their hard work would pay off.
Right. And now they're being treated not like hardworking federal employees, but actually like the enemy. Because Trump and Musk have said the government is the enemy and we are going to purge it. And I suppose they're going to close some positions, but I suppose they want to fill them with what they say are the best people. We only want the best people. We only want the geniuses for these jobs. We're going to have geniuses.
They want to kick out people who are good and replace them with mediocrities who are loyal. That is, they want to replace those jobs with people who do not know what they're doing. And we can see that on the top level, right? Like, who are the people that Trump is nominating to be the head of HHS, the head of the FBI? You can go down the list, and it's literally like the worst person you could imagine for each job. Like, at best, they're just incompetent. At worst, they're openly malicious. And, like, that's going to be the goal all the way down. Like, there was some really good reporting in Wired that showed that the Office of Personnel Management, which is basically the HR for the entire federal government, like, Elon Musk has basically taken it over by force, and he's hired a bunch of his, minions to run it, and some of them are like, literally one was a 21-year-old intern of Peter Thiel's. Another one was an intern of Elon Musk's who was only, as far as I can tell, 18 years old. He graduated high school in May.
I wonder if these young people understand that their own, probably not while Trump is president, but there's legal jeopardy for them. It's not legal if you're not a federal employee to access these systems, no matter what anybody says. It's not legal to just shove a server in and connect it to the tech stack at OPM. There are rules about this that are there to protect all of us and all of this data. So what they're doing violates a bunch of laws. And, sure, Trump won't prosecute them, but the people who did it are not without some legal exposure. And I think we owe it to them to let them know, hey, you can do what the boss tells you, but, ask Michael Cohen how that worked out for him.
Yeah, there's a reason that Elon Musk is picking teenagers to be his flunkies. There's no doubt about it. Like, because they're probably young, far right jackals who've been radicalized online, right? And they don't know anything about how the real world works. I mean, think about what you were like when you were 21 years old or 18, God forbid. And yeah, these are people that are easy to manipulate. You just flatter them and make them feel like they're the big kahuna, and then they will do the crimes for you and take the punishment. In a sense, like Elon Musk is doing with computer stuff what Donald Trump did on January 6th, which is to get a bunch of credulous, gullible people to do his crimes for him so that he could keep his hands clean.
The federal government spends trillions of dollars. I mean, the grants that they held up, I think, were $1.2 trillion, but the annual spend of the federal government is an enormous amount. And to let that, I mean, first off, I wouldn't trust these guys around, my wallet sitting on a table, let alone, and that's got like $4 in it. But I just don't trust them washing all this cash.
No, and I think And I think, a lot of these people are in over their heads because they have told themselves a story about what the federal government is. And they are so obtuse and so unwilling to let correct information into their brain if it contradicts what they want to believe, that they're going to just start blowing stuff up that's going to backfire on them, I think.
Yeah.
The one upside of having a bunch of mediocrities and incompetent people doing this kind of thing is that they're also not competent at
getting things done.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a skill. I know. I was able to do it. It's hard.
Yeah, it's a tough thing.
No.
So, I wouldn't count on it. They're going to break a lot of stuff and do a lot of damage, but I don't think that they're necessarily going to accomplish what they're setting out to do.
Unless, as you said, the damage is what they're setting out to do. So they can create a crisis.
Yes, definitely that. Go ahead, sorry.
As always with Trump, I worry that the awful things that we're seeing, are meant to take our eyes off the really awful things he's doing elsewhere. What do you suspect we aren't seeing?
I mean, I think that they were trying to hide the Elon Musk opium takeover. I think that's an incredibly dangerous thing, and a lot of the executive orders and big showy claims that they're going to buy out federal employees, which was always a lie, and other efforts, the very public war on federal employees, I do think was trying to distract from the very private thing that they're trying to do, which is, basically force these people out if they won't quit illegally. And so, they talked about buyouts and other kind of ways that were legal but not ethical, right, to kind of push people out to cover up for what looks an awful lot like it might be criminal activity.
Yeah, I mean, even the so-called buyout, it really wasn't a buyout.
No.
But there has to be, they don't get to decide, they don't get to make up federal programs. Congress does. So,
yeah.
I know it's a compliant Congress, but they still have to do it. The structure's still there. And if they haven't done it, they can't go and say, oh, we got money to pay you to not work. That's not up to them.
Yeah, this is an interesting thing because it's very clear, a lot of people have been warning for a long time that Elon Musk and a lot of these tech billionaires are very devoted to this writer named Curtis Yarvin, who has been expounding for years on why American democracy needs to be ended and be replaced with a dictator, right? And they see Donald Trump.
Caesar.
Yeah. And they see Donald Trump as the way to make that happen. But it's also very clear that it's not I don't think Elon Musk has any respect for Donald Trump. He probably thinks he's a Nimrod. I mean, everyone thinks Donald Trump is a Nimrod. I think that the goal here is to put a kind of fake dictator up front that they can control and do their dictator work behind the scenes with. And yes, they want to just sort of, even though, like you said, it's a compliant Congress, they still want to just sort of get rid of them. They want them to only be ceremonial. And unfortunately, a lot of these Congress, especially in the Senate, they just want the title and they want everyone to call them sir, and they kind of don't care about anything past that. And so they're willing to just sort of let all their actual power be replaced with just the ceremonial power.
Well, that's terrifying. I mean, I would have said the House was worse than the Senate, so I'm really interested in that. Is the Senate, is this on the Republican side, or are you just the Democratic side? And on the Democratic side, is it because they're not interested, or you just think they're too tired and need a younger generation?
I think the Republicans definitely just want to have the title, and they will just bend over backwards to just do whatever Trump wants. Very few of them have shown any spine even on issues they claim to care about, because what they actually care about is keeping their jobs and keeping all the goodies that come along with it. I think, unfortunately, in the Senate, a lot of Democrats are complacent for similar reasons. I think they do care more. That's why they're Democrats, you know. But they don't have a lot of fight in them because anything they think that's going to, like, go again, and it's obviously there's a lot of diversity. You know, I think like someone like Elizabeth Warren or Chris Murphy, there's a lot of senators who are willing to take risks, you know.
Yep.
A lot of them notably have safe seats.
Sure.
But I think there's a lot of them just like, they don't necessarily see the point of putting up a fight, especially if it's going to not immediately win, and then they just have to be kind of embarrassed. So I think we have that problem. In the House, I think you have a lot more Democrats that are like big-time fighters.
Yes.
In the House.
Yep.
But on the flip side of that, I think House Republicans are much more likely to be like bug-eyed ideologues, right?
Terrible people. Let's go back to the Senate for a minute, because I want to ask your opinion about this. You watch them more carefully than I do. But it's my view that two of the stupidest people in America are United States senators. One is Ron Johnson, possibly the worst senator in America, and that is a very low bar. And the next one would be Tommy Tuberville. I just think these people, I don't know how they can even get up and tie their shoes in the morning.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, like, if I was going to say that there was one guiding principle of the MAGA movement, it's that even the dumbest white man should be in line before the best black woman. And I mean, obviously that was proven true in the election, because Donald Trump is also amongst the dumbest white men and beat a very smart and qualified candidate in Kamala Harris, right? But, as an example.
As an example, yeah. Yeah. I mean, wow, Ron Johnson. I mean, I don't even think he'd be successful to use as a doorstop. It's just...
Oh, God, I had to watch the hearing, RFK's hearing, and, like, Ron Johnson was particularly... I had to turn it off because that level of just nuclear stupid is like, painful to listen to.
Yep, it is. And remember, he was also the bag man for the fake electors.
Yes.
Which he might not have known what was in the bag. I mean, certainly ignorance in his case is a legitimate excuse. But wow. So Trump did something else. He sent teams out into the federal workforce to make sure they were on board with his policies. But he's literally asking federal workers who say they're with him, when was your MAGA conversion moment? When was your MAGA conversion moment? Mm-hmm. What do you make of that?
Well, I think it's twofold. One, I think they have learned that there's a lot of power in kind of recasting their movement in almost quasi-religious terms, right? Like the white evangelicals who really glommed on to Trump basically treat him as an emissary of God, and that kind of thinking has infected the White House, right? And no joke, I mean, a lot of the people that Trump has appointed for high-level positions are Christian nationalists, like very, very, like crazy religious people. So I think that's part of it. But I also think, like, it's about trying to see how much somebody is willing to humiliate themselves. Because if they're willing to answer that stupid question and try to keep a straight face and praise Jesus Trump and all that, right, then you've got somebody that's willing, like, there's something about, like, forcing people to humiliate themselves where you've got them subjugated, right? Like, that's a way of showing ownership over them. They have licked, literally, like, not literally, but they've figuratively licked the floor to get this job. So now you can get them to do anything.
Yeah. That's really frightening.
Yeah, it is. And I think Trump does have kind of a feral instinct for humiliating people and making them bow and scrape before him and, basically sell their soul out so that he owns them.
I want to ask you about a scenario. You talked before about the tech bros. Maybe they don't love Trump. Maybe they think they can use him. So maybe Trump wins and the joke's on, I don't know who's selling the vaporware to whom here. Right? And maybe Trump will have his day with these guys. But maybe there comes a time when Trump goes. They find a way to get rid of him. J.D. Vance is their guy. He's their guy. I mean, is that something that worries you?
I don't think that they're plotting to get rid of him. I think that Melania, they're making the same bet Melania Trump did, which is look at him. How long could he live? And I think that that's always a poor bet. That his father lived well into his 80s.
It's frightening.
Don't bet against evil. Don't bet on evil people dying. It never seems to work out. But I think that a lot of them also just, even if he doesn't die of he's obviously getting old and tired. These executive orders are about trying to show his quote unquote strength, but it's also clear that he doesn't know what's in them. He's just signing everything they give him. He's just it is I do believe it. I think the story about his father when he had Alzheimer's was that they built an office for him and let him sit there and pretend he was in his office all day to soothe him and do pretend work all day that he thought he was doing real work. And in a sense, that's kind of the trick I think that they think that they're going to use on Donald Trump. And that one I wouldn't bet against because the man doesn't read. He's gotten tired. He just wants to golf, and have people call him sir. And I do think he will just sign whatever they put on his desk.
Oh, it's very frightening because, the people you're talking about, the they in that sentence, are not people Americans elected.
No,
that's
Elon
a coup.
Musk.
What you're describing is a coup.
Yeah.
All right. A good chunk of America is black. Today is the beginning of what, many people know as sort of Black History Month. The contributions of black Americans to the world, but to our country, to our economy, to science, to the ideals of justice and fairness in America is incomparably big. And Donald Trump signed an order that said, hey, it's Black History Month. Be sure you are appropriate in how you talk about it. What?
Yeah, I mean, Pete Hegseth canceled it for the military. He canceled it. He canceled MLK Day too. That.
Isn't that a national holiday? I thought that was a national holiday.
It is, but he's putting it. I don't know what the legality of it is, but MLK Day and Juneteenth have both been put on pause by Pete Hegseth, as well as any kind of Black History Month.
I think also any mention of the Tuskegee Airmen.
Yeah, they said they're going to put that back, but it's the whole point of this is to create a lot of confusion so that everyone just sort of self-censors rather than stepping into trouble, right? And
maybe,
the
Amanda.
thing about that is it's more effective than forbidding certain things. Because
maybe that's right. I mean, the other thing is you get us riled up about that, so that's what we're paying attention to. While they're siphoning cash out of the Treasury because they've now controlled the Treasury computers and the systems that are meant to protect it are gone. I mean, I'm not saying that's happening. Believe me, I'm not saying that's happening. But we no longer have the systems that protect America's finances. They're getting rid of folks at FDIC to protect our banking system. I mean, I just, every time he does something outrageous, we can focus on it and say, yeah, he's trying to get us to censor there, or we can say he knows we'll focus on that. But look what the honeypot his hand is in over here.
It's tough because it's also true that Donald Trump and the people he hires are very sincere racists, right?
Yep.
They very sincerely are offended by acknowledging the contributions of Black Americans to every field imaginable, and they don't want to even think about it, because if they do, I think in a lot of ways those kinds of celebrations and discussions are a reminder that actually Black people have disproportionately contributed to our culture and our society despite having the boot on their neck.
Yep.
And that's very impressive, and I think a certain kind of ugly, spirited white person, that makes them feel small.
That's so stupid. I mean, he also got rid of Holocaust Remembrance Day this time. I'm sure Jared and his family, who escaped, Jared's family at least, from that, must be wondering what's going on with his father-in-law.
Yeah. I mean, they don't care. They as long as they get paid, I guess. Not all of them. A lot of the Kushners are good people. I don't want to actually smear the whole family.
Yeah. Well, Amanda, I'm just looking at the clock and we've run out of time. I really appreciate every time we get a chance to talk. I love your work. Everybody, Amanda Marcotte is the, senior politics editor at Salon. Her work is, it's coming at light speed right now. And it's all good. You just got to see it. Amanda, thank you. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.